All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for coming to this week's Grow, where we gather, recharge, organize, and work. Today, we've got Alexis with us, who's going to talk to us about honoring Juneteenth and also reading out racism with joy. So, we're really excited to listen to all she has got to say, especially with Juneteenth coming up next week on Thursday. So, we'll let you take it away. Thanks, Alexis. Hope I think you might be muted.
Okay. I couldn't find my screen there for a second. I am really excited to talk to everyone a little bit about Juneteenth. This is something that I have really tried to understand over the years so I can show up and teach my kids. And it's been fun because I've had opportunities to be involved in different community events, and I really, really love Juneteenth. It's becoming one of my favorite holidays, and I'm actually sad that it's not something that I knew a lot about growing up and was able to celebrate. So now we are making up for lost time for sure. But I wanted to share actually one of my favorite children's books. This is a children's book that is called Juneteenth for Maisie. And I wanted to walk you all through it. I think that during Juneteenth, this is such a fun opportunity to start new traditions and to learn about it as a family and celebrate it as a family. And there are several books about Juneteenth. This is one of my favorites. And I want to just talk you through it just a little bit, and I'll read some parts of it because I think it does such a good job and it's great for all ages. I even think as an adult, I found it very interesting and I really like it. So, Juneteenth for Maisie by Floyd Cooper. Maisie wants to play outside, but it's too late. It's getting dark. Maisie, it's time to stay inside. Maisie wants a cookie, but it's time for bed. Not now, little one. It's too close to bedtime. Maisie wants to stay up late, but she is too little. Bedtime is the rule, sweet girl. So it starts the book as a little child wanting to do something and not having the choice to do it. It's too late. She can't do this, and I think this is a really great way for kids to understand limitations or maybe lack of freedom. And it's very child appropriate because I think kids can relate to this. And so I love how the book gets you right in on a child's level and perspective. And then it's this cute picture where she's snuggled up with her daddy. And it says, "Why are you so grumpy, Sugar Bear?" asked Dad. "I can't go where I want. Have what I want or do what I want," answers Maisie. "Well, tomorrow you can have a celebration," says Dad. "What are we celebrating?" So now she's going to learn a little bit about this holiday. "We will celebrate the day your great great grandpa Moses crossed into liberty. The day we the day will be celebrated by us and many more families on a day we call Juneteenth." Dad lifts Maisie into his arms. "I bet you're tired of hearing no all the time. Well, great great grandpa Moses heard no even more." So that is like an instant connection. This child now is connecting to an ancestor, and it's just, I love that it's just broken down in such simple ways. And then her dad starts teaching about their great great grandfather Moses. "Grandpa Moses worked in the fields that stretched all the way to sunset. He and the other enslaved people would be bone tired, but they had to keep going. Their enslavers wouldn't let them quit. But as they worked, they thought about freedom." And then it starts building this hope and this connection with freedom. And I'm not going to read you all of this because it would take too long, but I just want you to see some of the building blocks and teaching opportunities in this book that I myself am interested in, my teenagers and even my young kids. So then it talks about just this hope for freedom, and it really builds it. And I think it does it in such a realistic, honest way, but also a hopeful way. And I think that's really important when we're teaching kids. It talks about some of the pain, and it says, "They sweat, they bled, and they cried, till those cries were quieted by a single proclamation from a brave president." Grandpa Moses heard that proclamation read from the balcony of the hotel on that warm June day in Galveston, Texas. So now this is taking us to Galveston, Texas on Juneteenth, where this declaration was read. And it talks about the celebration that happened there. So we're connecting to the history and the celebration and what this truly meant for this little girl's ancestor and all of these other people, Americans that were Americans. And I love just the hope and the excitement of freedom. This is another part of the book that I really, really appreciate because it talks about how things weren't perfect after that. They didn't just transition and magically all of these dehumanizing beliefs, bias, prejudice, discriminatory actions, they didn't just go away. And here in this page it says, but things weren't perfect. Black people still struggled to stand shoulder to shoulder with white people. They still weren't treated as equals. It wasn't easy, but they never gave up. And every year on Juneteenth, they remembered. And we're building these building blocks of this remembering and honoring that will connect to this holiday. So then it gets really great and it talks about how people marched, they lobbied, wanted the right to vote, and they shouted for opportunity. And I love this. And the stories of Juneteenth continued throughout history. And it talks about how Black people wanted to get an education and to learn and develop themselves. And then here you even see looks kind of like Obama to me, a president, and they excelled and they achieved and they became heroes. And it's so cool to see from where it started and all of this progression. And then here it's Maisie and her friends, and now they get to celebrate. Now, sweet Maisie, it's your turn to celebrate, just like great great grandpa Moses. It's your turn, Maisie, to eat some barbecue and drink some strawberry pop. So this continues, and it just talks about the celebration and this day to remember and to honor the past. And I think this book is just so beautiful, the pictures. And then at the end, it just does this little historical recap that on June 19th in 1865, soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, announcing the end of the Civil War and the end of slavery in the United States. It was more than 2 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, celebrated every year on June 19th. And I love this. I think that if this is just one easy, accessible thing that you could do with your families, is read this book. You can get it on Amazon. A lot of bookstores around have it for Juneteenth. And there are so many Juneteenth books, but this is my favorite because there's this ancestral connection and it's from the lens of a child learning about it. And I think that it's something that it's very honest, but yet it's very, I don't know, it's just like remembering the people in such an important way that I feel like it's sensitive to that also. So I wanted to just start with something that was really easy and really accessible because I know that there are so many questions like, what do we do? How do we celebrate? Can white people celebrate? Is this just a Black celebration? And there's so many important questions. And I think that at first, we have to recognize that the understanding and the education is power. It's an opportunity to connect to people from the past and connect right now in our own communities. I would recommend that you try to find a Juneteenth event that is happening in your community and take your family and support that. It's an opportunity to meet friends and neighbors and to really come together as different communities. And I think right now, particularly, we are looking for moments of connection. And community is power. It is an act of resistance against polarization, division, dehumanization. When we can come together and find this common ground and celebrate our history, even some of the hard parts of our history, and then the moments of progression. And I think that Juneteenth is a huge moment of if I can talk here, of progression and celebration. Some other things that I wanted to talk about is there's also a really cute book about the mother of Juneteenth. And this is in order for this holiday, there was someone that really wanted it to happen, just like so many holidays that we get to celebrate. And Opal Lee was a teacher in Texas that wanted to make this a holiday. And she pushed very, very hard for years and years to do it. And she's the one who started this walking 2.5 miles. And some schools, some communities will do a walk where they will gather and they will walk for 2.5 miles. And the 2.5 miles represents those 2.5 years that people had to wait from the time of the Emancipation Proclamation to June 19th, almost 2.5 years later, where the word spread. And Texas was the last place that that word was spread. And there is some documentation that in some very rural areas, it took a lot longer for that news to get there. And um, so there were still people that were working in those conditions and they didn't know yet. But I think that good news is also something that is really fun and I like to talk to my kids about is you could even play the game telephone. I don't know if you've played that, and sometimes it's so fun because by the end the message is so different, and talking about how back then we didn't have social media or the news or ways to share that message, and so it went through people. And maybe that message didn't get to some people as quickly, but I think there's really fun activities that you can do as a family with that. So there's a great children's book about Opal Lee. I actually have it, but I couldn't find it. And it talks a little bit about her helping to make it become a holiday and this walk and this march. And you can look online and it's really fun to see all of the communities that come together to do this 2.5 mile walk. And this is something that maybe you can incorporate in your neighborhood, in your church community, and even in your city. So sometimes it is brainstorming those ideas and coming up with fun ways and trying things. I want to talk a little bit about the symbolism of some of the food in parts of the celebration. So the color red is very, very big in Juneteenth celebrations. And that color has actually kind of several meanings. So in West Africa, which is the area that most enslaved people were taken from, there are ties that red is power. It means resilience. It means coming together. And so that red has a very bold and powerful historical tie from West African culture. And then in Juneteenth celebrations, that red is also used as symbolism for blood that was shed and some of the really, really difficult, painful, and dehumanizing things that happened. And so you'll see red soda pop, strawberry soda, red Fanta, watermelon, berries, red velvet cake. And red is just a really big, important color that is used in Juneteenth celebrations all over the nation. Um, my kids get really excited because I get red soda. Back in more traditional Juneteenth celebrations, back a long time ago, it was red hibiscus tea. And that is really cool. And you could make it yourself or you could buy it. But I think for kid friendly versions, it's usually something like red velvet cake, watermelon, strawberries, or red soda pop. There is a lot of traditional foods that are celebrated also during Juneteenth that are more connected to soul food, which has historical ties to slavery. And some of the foods that people had to learn to make in a really good savory way because they were often given the worst cuts of meat and they had to learn how to make it tender and flavorful. And so there is a lot of rich history with the food, and you will get black eyed peas, which is also representative of prosperity and hope. And that is also included in a lot of even New Year's celebrations. Um, and barbecue. And there is just so many fun ways to celebrate it through food. And if you go to some of the Juneteenth celebrations, you will see that there is a lot of food there and activities for families to get involved. If you are from Utah, Salt Lake always does some really incredible Juneteenth celebrations. And sometimes you can find smaller ones. And I also urge you to start something of your own. I think that one thing that my mom has done with holidays and a whole variety of holidays is she'll have like a little grandma activity and a little message where she'll teach the grandkids even on like President's Day, Flag Day, Pioneer Day, like all these days she'll teach them this little message and then do a little activity. And I think it is such a cool opportunity to create traditions, but also education. And I think that when we all are more tied and connected to the history and can find ways where we connect in all of these intersections, I believe that that is powerful and that is important and that is also joyful. And with this title today, celebrating Juneteenth, rooting out racism, I think one of the most powerful ways to help communities heal and to progress and to recognize racism is through education. And holidays like Juneteenth, where we get to recognize the progression that we've made and also make a commitment that we want to move forward and we want to be aware of othering, of dehumanization, of anything that can divide and separate us. And I think right now that is so important. I mean, it's always been important, but right now we're seeing things and experiencing things where we can see how easy it is sometimes to have thoughts and to villainize or separate ourselves from a different group of people, and how important it is to be aware of that and to recognize that if we are not constantly working towards making sure that we are aware of that and we aren't othering, that sometimes that can happen. And sometimes we can even think that maybe our political views are better than someone else's or more educated than someone else's, or we can create a human hierarchy in so many different ways. And I'm really excited about this holiday because I know that I need some joy in my life. And it's such a great way that I can connect with family and friends, and I think it's a really good way to create teaching opportunities. So I'm actually going to wrap up there, and I would love to take any questions or thoughts or ideas if we wanted to have a little discussion about celebrating Juneteenth this year.
Okay. I have a question. I'm
Yes.
like post exercise in the room that I'm painting. So um, I'm curious. You said this is for Black people, this is for white people. But as a white person in a very white community, I know that my town is actually having a Juneteenth celebration, I think the Saturday before, but maybe it's the Saturday after. I need to double check. But like, I guess I just feel like, is it weird for me as a white person to be like, I'm going to have a Juneteenth party and invite all my white friends? Like, is that appropriate?
Well, first of all,
What?
Jalaire, I'd say if you do it, don't post it on the internet. Okay.
Okay.
That's my
Right.
first answer. But
But like,
I,
I guess I have a desire to be like, hey, white friends who don't live
yes.
around any Black people. Because we do have a very white community where I live. We have a more Hispanic population, but we don't have very many African Americans. And so I have a desire to be like, do you know about Juneteenth? Do you know about this? Maybe you should learn about it. But I guess I hold back from being like, I shouldn't be the one to do that, or maybe I should. So
Well, I
that's what I
think that
wanted
is
to
a
ask.
great question, Jalaire. And I think the sensitivity and awareness is really good and really important. And I usually say support the Black events in your community that are already
Okay.
happening. Show up and support those if you can. I think that if you want to gather some friends and family and maybe share like this book and say, I want to learn more about Juneteenth, and it's kind of coming from a place of curiosity, like it's important for me to learn, and so I wanted to invite all of you to learn with me. I think that's very
Okay.
appropriate. That
Okay.
when you are coming together, you're getting curious, you're wanting to learn. I think that's great. Um, I do think that this could be an opportunity. I mean, and you know, I mean, you're aware enough that you know that if there are maybe families that you're like, hey, do you guys do something for Juneteenth? And maybe if it's a Black family, maybe it's an opportunity to see what they're doing and join them, or to know
Okay.
what's going on in your community and support that. But I think that it would be totally appropriate to come from a place of curiosity and learning and just saying, I'm trying to learn more about this holiday. Why don't you come over to my house? I have this great little children's book we're going to read, and just a great little discussion, and then maybe you end it with a fun treat or a red velvet cake or something like that.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I think that there's a difference between like taking and utilizing and taking credit for someone's culture or ancestry
Right.
and then honoring and celebrating it. And so I
Okay.
think that
Perfect.
when we're trying to honor, and it's a day of remembrance and deep respect and curiosity and education, I think that's a great place.
Awesome.
So I
Thank you.
hope that kind
That's
of
really,
helps.
no, that's really helpful. I will say my children will be at FSY and my husband will be at Deacon Camp. So I'll be on my own on Juneteenth, but they will be here on the Saturday that the
Yeah,
city is doing something. So I'm going to for sure try to be like, let's go, folks. So,
I love that.
um,
Well, and I also
but
think even like on the Sunday, you could do a little family activity or a
okay,
family
yeah,
home evening and learn about it together as a family. I think that's great.
awesome. Thank you. That's really helpful.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate that I knew I could ask you and you would know where I
Yes,
was
you can
coming from.
ask. Yes. I'm like, are there questions in the chat? I'm trying to see here. Okay. This is awesome. It sounds like there's some good things happening. Any other questions? Robin, I think I see your hand raised.
Yeah, so I am really miffed at the anti-DEI stuff going on in corporate America. It's completely ridiculous. And so I actually focus on well-being in organizations as well as well-being for women. Let me lower my hand. And so I have created various workshops for organizations that have touched on different elements. I thought, okay, I'm going to create a workshop using the word diversity, equity, but I use collaboration because I think collaboration is far more broad than inclusion. To me, inclusion means you're invited to the party, which is great.
Yes.
Collaboration means not only are you invited to the party, you get to help plan the party and you get to help bring the party to life. And so I like to use collaboration. And so like people being scared to use the word diversity. It's like, man, I'm going to get in their face and I'm going to use it. And so I'm posting that, post this on LinkedIn and my email, my professional Facebook page, and I'm going to post it in a few minutes on my personal Facebook page. But it's like it's completely stupid for this whole thing. And so I'm just really getting in people's faces about it. And then I thought there's the movie Hairspray. If you haven't seen the movie Hairspray, it is a
I love it.
it is a delightful musical comedy wrapped around the serious issues of racism and segregation. So I said that night, so in the morning I'm doing my workshop, and that night I'm having a virtual watch party that hop on with me. We'll watch Hairspray. So anyway.
I love that song. And I mean that movie, and my favorite song in that movie is where she sings There's a Light in the Darkness. And oh, that is a great song. I love that so much. But I think that's wonderful. And I think starting your own just traditions where whether you show up and you support something local, you spend some time reading, educating yourself, taking opportunities to do a workshop with diversity, equity, and collaboration. I love that. I think that's really, really great. And it's really helpful when you can sometimes hear other people's ideas and it can help you come up with some of your own. So thank you for sharing that. Are there any other questions or thoughts?
I just, it's maybe not very well formulated, but I just thought while you're talking that I just love that Juneteenth is an American holiday. It's not just a holiday for one group of people. This is a holiday for all of us. And so I was just reflecting on how important it is to me that all of us are enriched when any of our brothers and sisters have more liberty, more freedom, more opportunity to express themselves, to grow, to reach their potential. And all of us are really diminished when any one of us, any part of us, any group of us is diminished or held back or not given equal rights. And so it just made me feel some gratitude and solidarity that this was Juneteenth is not just a celebration for the people in Texas or the Black community or anything. This is like the whole world can rejoice when all of us are liberated because all of us have raised up another rung. So it just makes me feel that joy that you're, really expressing as you're talking about the book and your feelings about the holiday.
I love that, Jane. And I think that's a really good point because even as I was growing up, there were even American holidays that I didn't feel like I could completely connect to. Because even the 4th of July, I'm like, for my ancestors,
Um,
was that a time of celebration? But Juneteenth is that moment. And I think just like I can connect and celebrate the 4th of July and the hope for freedom and liberty for all, Juneteenth is that marker of progression, and it is an American holiday. It absolutely is. And I'm so excited that more people are learning about it. And it is something that I hope will be we'll have deep traditions in the future where we can celebrate that and come together more because it is something that really does mark so much of that important progression and there's still more to come.
there's
And I
lot.
love what you're saying. It really is an opportunity that if some don't have that, then then that we don't have the American dream yet. We truly don't. So thank you for pointing that out. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your enthusiasm and joy that you're sharing because you're sharing the joy of Juneteenth with us.
Yes. Yes, and it really is, and it's been fun to see even the excitement of my kids, and so I think that when you can start these small little traditions, that it really can grow to something important and meaningful.
Yeah.
So I love that. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay, well, I will probably wrap things up then and just invite you all to find a way to get curious, to learn more about the holiday and the history, and find opportunities to connect with your neighbors and your friends. And I have a little helper down here. Do you want to say hi? It's summer, so we have lots of helpers around here. But I really encourage that you'll do that. And I feel like there's so much that I learn every year about the holiday, about the experiences, about the individuals. And I think it can have deep meaning to each of us individually. And I hope that you'll invite people along in this learning with you so that we can understand more and get curious and connect more with our friends and neighbors. So thank you so much for your time. And this book, Juneteenth for Maisie by Floyd Cooper.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you so much, Alexis. It was really a wonderful presentation. And I love that everyone is like jumping on things already. People are already ordering the book, making plans, searching stuff to do that day. And really wonderful that people, like for myself too, to just make this coming Thursday and weekend a richer experience and a more hopeful experience with the holiday. So with that, I'd like to invite you to join us for our following Grow, which will not be next week because of Juneteenth, but the week after. So we hope to see you all there. And thank you, everyone. Thanks, Alexis.